What do you look for when buying a used G-Wagon? If you're in the market for a G-Wagon, watch this video all the way through because Joe, the G-Wagon expert here at Alliance Auto Care, is going to walk us through a used vehicle inspection. So he helped me bring this beautiful beast to life, which is a 2015 4-inch lift 35. So we did a build walkthrough on the channel. And if you're new, welcome to the G-Wheelin' channel, where everything we do here is for the love of G. We're going to turn our attention to this G63 that's on the rack as we speak. And Joe's going to take over from here to show you what to look for as you inspect your own G-Wagon before you buy it. And wait, before we get into this video, linked beneath here is a link to the Ultimate Buyers and Build Guide that'll walk you through model years, what to look for, and all the aftermarket you need to know so you can bring your G dreams to life. Joe, walk us through inspecting this vehicle.
All right, here we are. So
under a G.
This is a G63, about 100,000 miles. And it is in here for some maintenance and service, but this is a fantastic example of things we see and things to look for.
This is 2015, by the way.
Yep, 2015 G63. So initially we have it up in the air, we pulled the skid plates off, and this is a lot of our process we do for a PPI also. But immediately we see some stuff that's wet here. We trace it down to we've got some power steering fluid leaks up top. So this is pretty common on trucks that are 100,000 miles old. You're going to see some leaks and some wet stuff. The key thing is pinpoint and figure out what it is so you can put a game plan together and get it fixed. Everything is fixable on these trucks. Everything is mechanical. Everything is analog. There's no excuse not to fix it. Don't run away from stuff like that because it's usually pretty inexpensive and easy to fix. Moving alongside of this is a good example. And we'll see a lot of this on the swivel balls and these axles. There's two of them here. And these are in great working condition. So I get asked this question all the time, like, hey, I see some grease on my swivel balls. Do I need to be alarmed about this? This is normal. This is it's a Cosway, it's a grease. What we see when these things start to wear out is there's an inner CV that the boot tears open and we get a green snotty ooze coming out of there. When we see the green ooze, that's when it's time to do a front axle rebuild. Usually about every 150,000 miles is when we see the front axle swivel balls needing a rebuild. And it's just kingpin bearings, CV boots, grease, lubrication, seals and whatnot. But again, look for the green tinted grease that's coming out. This is still great shape. It's probably got another 50,000 miles on it. Hey, no big deal.
What's that cost, by the way?
Front axle rebuild, $5,500.
Oh, that's cheap.
Yeah.
That was a joke, by the way. That was a joke.
Considering that's a major front axle service at 150K,
yeah,
it's not bad.
You got a lot of years out of it by then.
Yeah, totally. So moving along to this, and this is, as you come underneath here, I'm going to point out a couple things. The front suspension on this truck is largely original. So we've still got the original shocks on this. You notice the bushings are starting to crack. Yeah. Everything's looking pretty questionable for wear there. This is a good time when I'm going to have the conversation with the client to figure out, A, how does he want to use the truck moving forward? If he's going to do some light trail work or take it up to mountains, we're going to have that discussion about upgrading his shocks and springs because the springs are pretty worn out on the test drive on this truck and the shocks are pretty worn out. So that's an easy upgrade that would definitely not turn me away from getting into the truck. It just opens the door for an opportunity to make it ride better.
And if you're going to lift it, I mean, there's no better time.
Yeah, totally.
Because otherwise you do what stupid people do like I do and you just throw out good stuff.
Yep, you got to replace the stuff anyway. Yeah. So moving on back, this truck is a great example though. There's no rust, no corrosion. It's dirty because you just came from the mountains on this one, but it's good shape. Moving underneath here, we've got still all the factory undercoatings on there. Even the TK still has all the factory undercoatings. So I'm not really seeing anything bad. One thing we do want to watch out for is the transmission. This one again is dry, but we do occasionally see some fluid leaks around the pan and around the adapter plug up here. And we do service these every 50,000 miles, and because of that, our routine maintenance customers, we just don't see the leaks, and this one has been serviced also. But what that means is we replace the adapter plugs, we replace the gaskets, and we just don't have that problem moving forward. So this is a case where it has been serviced, we just don't see these problems. Moving on back to the transfer case, because it is a divorce transfer case, it's not uncommon to see them wet like this. What we look for, though, is any kind of drips coming off the bottom of this transfer case. And this one is super dry.
This is dry. Yeah.
This is still what we call the Cosway coating. It's a factory coating that Mercedes puts on there from the factory. It prevents rust, corrosion, all that kind of jazz. So again, don't have to worry about it. Usually at about 150,000 miles or 20 plus years of service, the liquid gasket in here will break down over time. So we actually pull the whole box out of the truck. We blow it apart on a bench and reseal it, put new seals, put new mounts in it, and it freshens the whole thing back up again. Super serviceable, easy. Where we look really hard on these trucks is actually at the back of the truck. We look at the control arms, we look at the bushings, we look at any kind of rust and corrosion up on the frame. And this one looks like it's led a pretty good life. It's dirty, but I don't see it.
You know, speaking of rust, we're going to dive into this in more detail.
Totally.
In a video soon, because rusty G-Wagons, that's a thing.
It's a thing, and you know, we make a living fixing rusting G-Wagons.
Yeah, so find a good specimen. We'll talk through those common areas for rust here later in this video.
Yep. So one of the things we want to look at is the rear suspension area and these shock mounts. And you'll see these. If you're looking for a G-Wagon yourself, inspect this area really closely. This is the first thing to rust out and degrade on these trucks.
Which again is fixable.
Totally. We fix a lot of these. We actually keep all the factory Mercedes metal in stock just because we do so many of them. We actually plasma torch those off, TIG weld on new ones, recoat it, put it back to factory. We've actually had to redo all the suspension metal on some trucks. So again, it's all fixable. You just need to know what you're getting into before you get into the truck and determine if it's worth it or not for you. Aside from that, usually at about 120 to 150,000 miles, we always look at the suspension bushings, all the pickup points that hold the axle to the frame. And again, this one, we're starting to see some micro cracking in there. Not the end of the world, but if you are going to do any kind of suspension upgrade on the truck, we look at redoing the suspension bushings and or changing out control arms to aftermarket control arms and making it perform better for you. So those are some of the things we look at. Moving on to the usual stuff, brakes, tires, and all that. As trucks age, we still have the rubber brake lines on this truck. Again, this truck's only 10 years old. We're not at risk of that. But all the trucks that come through our shop that are 20 plus years old, we always put these on the list, largely because we do see the factory rubber stuff break down over time. And we don't want to risk a safety issue where you blow out a brake line. So we do all these in-house. We actually make them out of braided stainless steel. And they're all throughout the truck. So not just at the wheels, we do them at the axle to chassis junction as well. So those are some of the things you want to look for. Coming out here, and again, this is a little easier since the truck's up in the air, we can have a better look at the suspension pickup points up in here where the shock mount is and where the spring mount is. And those are areas that what happens is they just collect a bunch of water and it doesn't have a good way to drain. So it's kind of a design issue, and if you don't wash your truck, particularly if you live on coastal regions where you have a lot of salt or they salt the roads in the wintertime, you have to get in the habit of washing all that off just so it doesn't sit there and corrode. So
get your vehicles out of the rust belt. Like when I look at older vehicles, I'm like looking down south and I'm looking down out west. But also the white one I got was from St. Louis, and they salt roads. They just didn't get a lot of snow, but that was a garage queen. So I got lucky.
And they pressure washed it. And you'll usually have indicators of that. What you'll see in addition to that is you'll see the exhaust systems will start to rust out. You'll see the joints up here where things are kind of welded together, largely because the pipework on all Mercedes stuff is stainless, but the joints are mild steel. So if you get in the truck and you see this stuff starting to fall apart, that's a good indicator that it's got some other rust elsewhere in the truck. So just little things to look for. This isn't meant to scare anybody away from getting into one of these trucks. This is meant as an educational piece to let you know that everything is addressable, everything is fixable. Just arm yourself with the knowledge before getting into it.
Yeah.
That's really it.
And if you find the right vehicle and you know it needs a few things, like it factors into your offer, factors into your budget.
Totally. In a vehicle like this, if you're looking for a 63, but you want to lift it with a 2-inch lift and do some off-roading on it, this is the perfect time to get into it because you know you need shocks and springs anyway. No harm, no foul. You're going to upgrade it. So.
And the best part is when you look at a G-Wagon and you want one like this, and you want a solid axle and you want the original G, your options are up till 2018. So you're not getting new. Yeah. And you just need to come to grips with the fact that you're buying a $140,000 vehicle that hopefully the people before had taken great care of. But as long as you do the work, the things are just going to keep going and going and going.
Yep. So that's typically what we see. They're super solid, but that's what I look for underneath the truck is all those little items. So I look for rust, corrosion, leaks. I look at the suspension. We look at the brakes. We look at all the chassis stuff. We look at all the bushings and really just make sure it's solid. Yeah. And then the last part of the equation, this is the unwritten part of the equation, is we always look for accident damage. Occasionally we'll get them in there where they weren't fully disclosed. It's very rare, but you'd be surprised the amount of hits these trucks can take.
Yeah,
I look at Adam because
they're beefy. There's a few vehicles that Joe's worked on recently that have seen some better days, including the salvage G55 AMG that used to be over there.
Oh man, yeah.
Which is
they can take a tremendous beating, but even if they were in an accident, make sure they were repaired properly.
Yeah. So is an accident on a Carfax report a deal breaker for you?
Nope.
Okay.
Not at all.
Joe, can we walk over to the green truck just and talk through when you're looking at a used G? And by the way, as we walk through, you'll notice beautiful G. I don't want to get too deep. Just talk about that engine once.
This is the M113 AMG motor. This is actually a 5.5 liter AMG motor.
Yeah,
it's in process. This is a motor swap into an early Wolf.
250 GD. Back on track. That's what happens when you get two guys that love G's talking. So what we're going to do over on this beautiful truck over here, I'd love to walk through and just highlight the key areas for people to look for when we have rust on a G-Wagon, because I know that the internet's probably plagued with, G-Wagons are rusty, G-Wagons are rusty. And I will say the first one I look at was a 2014. And the side steps, which these don't have the factory side steps. Factory side steps were rusty, and there was rust in all of the areas, and I was like, no, I'm not touching it.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's repairable, but how much? And you can find them without rust. So let's walk through from the front to the back and just highlight the main areas that you'll find.
And what you're talking about is external things that you can see without putting a truck up in the air.
Correct.
That's actually really good. We're going to start right here, actually, because this is the first thing I look at.
Yeah.
Is when you go down, we've got this neat little rubber rocker molding. And you see we're starting to pull up over here. This is an older one. It's golly.
What year is this truck, just so folks know?
97. So
97.
30-year-old truck.
Yeah.
So yeah, the rubber part is a little fatigued, but the thing I look for is there any rust or corrosion underneath there? And the answer to this one is no, I don't see it.
Before we get there, windshield surrounds.
I'm getting there.
Oh, we're going to do windshields later. Joe's got to order. We're going to hit the doors
There's an order for this.
first.
There's a logic. I start from the bottom up. So if you're looking at a truck, I want you to open up every single door. And what you want to look for is any kind of questionable material here. Anything that's rusty, bubbled paint is a dead giveaway. So this truck, again, it's really clean. Open up the back doors, and there's one little key difference I want you to look at. Again, everything looks really good, but on older trucks, look at this. The door bellows. There's a wiring harness that goes through this, and as trucks age, those will routinely rip and expose the wiring harness.
Do you see, Joe, because I've seen some of this, some rust around hinges, specifically underneath the hinges?
I have and I haven't. It really depends on if it's in a salty environment or not.
Yeah.
So that's
as with any vehicle, like if anyone knows, Toyota had their rusty problems. Dodge has had rusty problems. So what we're showing you is the common areas, because all these vehicles are showing the rust symptoms in certain areas. So what you're seeing here are the main areas to observe for rust.
Right.
It's not like I looked at it, it's rusty, I'm going to stay away.
Yeah.
And be mindful, as Joe said, of bubbles that were repainted over.
Yep. And I want to focus on the back of the truck. We'll save the windshield for last.
All right, the windshield for last.
Okay. One thing you're going to see, and I see this more often than not, is the back area. From this area back, you will see bubbles starting to form under here where water kind of sits there and coagulates and gets underneath the paint and goes through. So watch these back corners really closely, particularly around this area also. Also, the seam seal from here will start to rot as it comes up, because underneath, it's just a channel and water will sit there and slowly permeate up. So watch this area really closely. Again, this one isn't in bad shape. It actually has zero issues with it. But we will see rust come up through here and kind of permeate through the rear quarters. I've got trucks at the other shop where we've done a full repair on them, and it's a whole mess. I'm going to open up the tailgate on this and show you where we typically see rust on the tailgate. And is where, feel free to open, make sure you open up all the doors. But on the tailgate, I want you to get down here, and you're going to look really goofy to the seller, and I want you to take this and pull it. It comes off pretty easily, but you can see right away this area holds a lot of water. Again, this is too nice of an example to really play this game, but it just pulls out. Oops, look at that. We got a little bit of discoloration, we got a little bubble. So something's starting to happen on this truck. So we may want to address that and get it fixed before it goes out.
Yeah, it's much easier to be proactive on this stuff than it is to be reactive and deal with it later.
Yeah, and it just pushes in there. It's just a friction fit, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But also the weather stripping on this is fairly fresh. That's why it's still pliable and seals nicely. And away you go.
Yeah. In door sills and also hinges I've seen
totally
on the inside of the rear doors.
All of that. So,
God, I love this truck, by the way.
Again, moving around here, make sure you check everything. Look at the bellows. Look through here. This truck's it's easier on us because we do have the 90-degree hinges, so it opens all the way up.
Yeah, that's coming on my truck soon too. I got a wish list, a growing wish list. And then, of course, as we went through the underside of the other vehicle, the G63, look for surface rust.
Right.
It's not rocket science.
So the driver's door is the worst because we're always getting out of the driver's side. Take a good look at the weather stripping down here. That'll tell you pretty quickly if we've got anything major going on. Again, this has been replaced a couple of years ago, so it's still soft and pliable. Pull up the floor mats. Make sure the carpet is dry. That's another big one. That'll tell you right off the bat if the drains are clogged. Believe it or not, I get trucks shipped into me in the middle of summertime that came from a different location geographically. And we pull the floor mats out, and it is wet. The carpet's just wet. So we actually pull everything out. We roll the windows down, and we actually let it bake in the sun and get all the moisture out of there. But that's one of those things to watch out for, especially if you're looking for a used truck, because you don't want to have water intrusion. And if you do, we got to figure out why. One of the most common areas of water intrusion is actually going to be your sunroof seal. And sunroofs, some people love them, but they are the bane of our existence because we fix so many of these trucks. This truck, you're not really going to see anything in there, but this one did have a sunroof seal leak. And we had to reseal everything, and we actually had to steam clean the headliner to get it out of there. It happens. It's not a big deal. It's just you get sticks, branches, or even it gets misaligned, and you got to fix it. It's just part of the game.
Yeah.
But
which we'll go through in our, which we went through in our drive tours,
Yep.
checking that.
And then no truck is impervious to this. Just so you know, the sunroofs on these trucks are the same from day one 463 to 2018. The exact same parts, exact same seal. There's no right or wrong answer. All right, come around here. Let's look at the windshield. So this windshield, there's two different variants basically. What we'll start to see is bubbling of the paint along the base because water will get in between and sit underneath it. This gasket is just a rubber gasket. You can peel it up and get underneath it. And there's no glue in here. So if you see any bubbling or cracks in the paint or anything starting to kind of come apart on the windshield frame, that's time to have it addressed. And believe it or not, what it looks like is we cut the glass out of the truck. We have to cut this and ruin it. We pull the glass out. We take all the paint off the windshield frame and cut in new material wherever we need to, or we fix all the corrosion and repair it in the truck. Again, it's not a big deal. It is a little time consuming, but it's done right and you kind of reset the clock on it. We can usually paint match everything and so no one will know the repair is actually done. In severe cases where there's just not enough material left or it's all Swiss cheese, we can actually get a brand new windshield frame from Mercedes and TIG welded in there so it looks factory.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. So we do get rusty trucks. It happens. They are made out of steel and we do live on coastal regions. It's not a bad thing. It just means that we need to be proactive about it and have it rectified when the time comes.
All right, we are on a test drive. So what should a G-Wagon shopper look for on their G-Wagon when they're doing a test ride? Before we go anywhere, let's talk about buttons. Buttons, right, Joe?
Lots of buttons.
Check everything. Windows, of course.
Yep, windows.
Front, rear. By the way, G-Wagons don't have one touch up because that would be luxurious. You have one touch down, no one touch up.
Sunroof. Again, I've preached on this as a bane of my existence. Go ahead and go down the road. I'll chat about this. Open it up. Make sure it works. If it doesn't work, we're going to know about it right away. If you get a G-Wagon with sunroof doesn't work, don't fret it. Just means we got to fix it. Look at all the lights. As you're looking up on the truck, make sure you look around here for any kind of discoloration. That means you got water leaks, water intrusion, or seal that's not working. Moving down from there, again, I gotta go from top to bottom.
Oh yeah, we have opposite orders. I like your orders. Go ahead.
Systematic.
Systematic.
On the outside, you go from the bottom up. Outside,
inside, top down.
Yeah. Obviously, you're looking at the front of the truck. Make sure the windshield is not cracked, severely pitted, or just overall, out of sorts. It's not uncommon to see these things that get really pitted. You can go with a factory Mercedes glass. Believe it or not, there's actually aftermarket support. I know Novus and Anchor and so forth can carry glass for this and get you in there for a lot less than factory Mercedes. So we actually do all of our glass in-house. So again, it's one of those services we offer. Moving on down the truck, you've got your vents. These things are always made out of cheap plastic. On older trucks, let's say early MB USA trucks, these usually crack and kind of fall apart. Not the end of the world, we can still get these, especially the centered vent on the older trucks. They usually kind of fall apart over time, so just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. If you find one that's in great shape and it's not falling apart, it means the truck sat inside and was garaged, so that's really good, so keep an eye out for that. Glove boxes, again, these are always kind of tricky, so keep an eye out for those.
This is mine. That's not normally there.
This is my doggy bag.
It's your doggy bag. It's for clipping a radio when you're off-road for
Yeah.
my wife to have her spot of things.
Yeah, cup holders are one of those things that G-Wagons, never really thought was a necessity. See,
Yeah.
Mercedes gave us this little token basket down here for your cup.
But there's enough ashtrays for an army.
Yeah, apparently everyone likes to smoke in these.
Yeah.
The other thing we always look for is make sure the air conditioning works. Heat, you're going to know that right away. But air conditioning, crank it up, crank it all the way down. Make sure you get cold air. It should freeze you out. These newer trucks especially have really efficient cooling systems, and it should make you really cold. It's already working, so there we go.
Yeah.
So make sure that works. That's the big thing there. Aside from that, overall aesthetics, the seat switches on these newer trucks, run them forward and backwards. Make sure the seat back goes forward and backwards. One of the key things we'll see on this, starting from 2002 and newer, is these switches always go south. So you always want to check these, and if they are going south, just get new switches. But one of the telltales on this is they'll start working in reverse. So you go forward, the seat will go back, or vice versa. It's really counterintuitive.
They do occasionally just decide to not work randomly.
Yep.
And then they work.
Correct.
So maybe that one needs some help sometime, but it's working now.
It's like an old, early Nintendo. You just unplug it, blow on it, put it back together.
Right.
Aside from that, there's not a whole lot internally you got to look for. Now that we're going down the road, you want to feel for vibrations, weird sounds, weird kind of lumpiness. In this truck, it's lifted on 35s and it's pretty damn smooth, which is a great thing. But we have driven some other trucks that are lifted incorrectly, and we've just got awful vibrations or harmonic frequencies.
And you'll feel it. Wheels will shake.
Yep.
Drive lines will stutter.
Exactly. So starting in the middle of the truck, when you have a truck that's not quite put together right, you're going to get a pretty gnarly harmonic frequency that just shakes the whole truck at a big, really heavy frequency. You're going to walk away from it or have a heavily discounted price. Adam, move the wheel like you said with the shimmy. You'll get trucks that are going down the road and will start to do a little bit of shimmy like that. That's usually indicative that we've got a front axle CV shaft that's starting to go out on us, and it just can't hold its center line. And that's pretty common. Usually we'll see that at like 40 to 60 miles an hour. We'll get like a little shimmy out of the wheel, but the truck's going straight. So keep an eye out for that. Aside from that, you want to make sure you have a firm brake pedal. You want to make sure you have a consistent brake pedal. Granted, we've got a road crown, but find a flat piece of the road that
These things can pull.
Exactly. You want to be able to hit the brakes and it's stopped. You don't want it to dart off one side or the other.
Yeah. Which, isn't quite as common with all vehicles, but is something that seems to happen with G-Wagons.
These are very sensitive to that, largely because it is a solid axle truck. And if we've got a tire pressure that's out of whack or any kind of brake imbalance, you're going to know it right away. And it's going to pull and do some really funky stuff.
Yeah.
So once you kind of get outside the basic safety stuff, then you want to run it up and down the freeway once, get it up to highway speeds. You want to make sure, A, it accelerates okay, it's got good power. It's not misfiring. You're going to get a check engine light right away if there is any fault with the motor. It'll let you know really fast. The other thing you want to make sure is, does it shift okay? Meaning, does it grab the next gear when it should? Does it grab it quickly? Does it feel like it's slipping, or does it feel like it's...
Oops.
That's okay. We can go down. Or does it feel like it's too harsh when it shifts gears? So those are some of the things you want to watch for when you're driving one of these trucks up to speed. Now, right now we're going through town, so this is kind of a nice example. You can kind of make sure that it's grabbing and shuffling the gears accordingly and not giving you a bunch of weird shift points either.
Yeah. Obviously, check for air lights on the dash too. Check engine lights, the obvious.
Absolutely. In fact, on that note, if you are looking at a truck and it does have any kind of aero light, being a check engine light, airbag light, or ABS light, it's an immediate fail on the state inspection and emissions inspection, believe it or not.
Really?
Yep. So even if you're buying it from out of state, you need to know the laws and registration requirements where you're living, because that's where you have to register it. But I will say, in the state of Colorado, if you have an airbag light on, a traction control or ABS light on, or check engine light, it's an immediate fail, and the seller is on the hook for fixing it. So just heads up on that.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Can you talk about
seats?
Seats.
Let's do that. So this truck is a 2015 550, and this truck has the heated and cooled seats with the pneumatic adjusters, and it has these little these adjusters down here. Believe it or not, these are air powered, and there's a little compressor underneath my seat that as I move these around, I can feel the bladder inflating and deflating. These are really nifty when they work.
They seem to go out on all older Gs, and when I got this, I was shopping over the phone because I was buying out of state. I had another seller Actually, on Bring a Trailer, I said, hey, I'm interested in everything, did videos, showed everything else. I said, do the pneumatics and the seat work? And he said no, and it wasn't disclosed. Mm-hmm. Then I find this truck. Everything checks out. I did a little virtual test drive, and I say, can you check the pneumatics on the seat? And they don't work. And if my memory is right, it's one pneumatic pump that controls both. Is that right?
Correct.
And it's, I think it was like a $1,200 repair or something like that.
It is very expensive. It's a small pump underneath the passenger seat. And what happens is the O-rings for all these little switches inside of here will degrade and it'll start to leak. The pump is always powered whenever the truck is on, meaning that it has a little reservoir and it wants to see, I think it's somewhere like 10 PSI or something like that. It's not a whole lot. But when it sees that the pressure drops, it'll automatically cycle the pump. So some of the other trucks you get into, as it's failing, you're going to hear this little electric motor going burp, 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 burp all the time.
Yeah.
And it's maddening because you don't know where it's coming from until it burns out. And it can only do that for so long before the pump just says, no more, I'm done. And not only do you lose all your pneumatics, but then you are now out of a pump.
Yeah. Now, and it's nice. It only matters if you want to be comfortable. So
minor details.
Minor details. And you know, I should have mentioned this before. People might be wondering, are G-Wagons that loud? This has an MBRP aftermarket exhaust, and it's really loud. So don't expect your G-Wagon to sound like this.
This truck is really loud.
Really loud. I mean, we'll have some fun. We can downshift it and really let her rip.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, you just need to...
Oh yeah, we should get the... Oh, tunnel poles are the best. Let's get some...
I know where to go.
Like, this is what I call my redneck G-Wagon. I love it. So we're going to head over to the shop real quick on the other side.
Oh, I don't have my keys with me. Sorry.
We're not going to head over to the shop, but I am because I'm in this turn lane. And we're just going to pull into this gravel lot and just show you. It's really important that you test the lockers on your G-Wagon because my prediction is that the person that owned it before you
has never used them.
Never once used them. Joe, are these fixable?
100%, yes.
What fails on them?
Ooh, what fails? It's usually the hydraulic lines get clogged and the lines get ripped out from weeds and tumbleweeds and all sorts of crap. But the big killer of differential locks is going to be the lack of use, pure and simple.
So cycle your stuff. This says private property. I want to respect the private property. So we're going to go to your property.
Deal.
Because I respect that one too, but we're allowed to be there.
Yep.
Now, when you test the 4-low, don't freak out if it has a hard time connecting when you're on pavement, because it will. And it's not ideal to do this on pavement for a long term. For a test, it's going to be fine.
Why don't you show them how to put it in 4-low?
Yeah.
That's a big question. So
big question on 4-low. So if you can take the camera and put right here, this is actually, these vehicles are all-time 4-wheel drive. And to put it in 4-low, we got to put it into neutral. Now, if you'll notice, I was able to put it into neutral while I was driving. Joe actually showed me this. I didn't know you could do it. While I'm moving, and then you can see on the dash, low range is now on. So now I can shift it back into drive. While I'm driving, I'm in 4-low. Your locker number 1 is your center lock, which will provide equal power to front and rear. And this little yellow light means, hey, we got the signal. We're going to try to turn on now. And then when it actuates, it will highlight this red one. And then you'll notice on the dash, it says differential locks active. And so that's on. I'm going to hit the rear. Sometimes you do need to shimmy the wheel to get all those teeth to line up. Sometimes you need a little throttle. Sorry about this. And then, oh, you can, yeah. All right, now what we're gonna do is you do not wanna do this in turn. I'm gonna hit the front. So this was the rear, here's the front. We're gonna test this again. I'm gonna cycle the wheels, give it a little gas, and we're gonna go on this dirt because why not, right? And there's our front locker. The reason I'm driving into the dirt now is if I was on pavement, I wouldn't be able to turn the wheel. Okay, you can even hear it binding up. To reverse order, you can just hit the 1 or you can go like this. And then it'll take a minute. So these are showing that it's on and I can feel that they're still locked. And now we're in business and I'm gonna shift it out of 4-low and high range is back on. I didn't expect to do an off-road test on this today.
Yeah, but you know, we got to show the clients what the behind the dumpster scene looks like.
It's true. And what I love is when that would have been an off-road test on some YouTube channels, like, check out, we're going to off-road our vehicle. So there you have it. Everything you need to look for on the inside. And remember, if there are heated seats, check them, because there are even heated seats in the rear of this vehicle. And you want to make sure all of that works. Again, that's all kind of common sense with any used vehicle. So there we go. Now you know what to look for and how to inspect to buy the G-Wagon of your dreams. The common areas of rust, the common areas of leaks, concerns, and other items, whether it's suspension. If you want to learn more about finding the perfect G for you, click the link in the description right now and download the Ultimate Buyers and Build Guide. If you're anywhere in the country and you want your vehicle serviced, you can ship it to Joe. Joe does an extensive repair division from everything from frame-off restorations to maintenance, and he specializes in working with Gs. We're not even in the G shop.
We're not even in the G shop
yet. You'll see that more later. So thanks for sticking around in this video. If you are new, subscribe to the channel, and then YouTube thinks you're really going to love this video, and we'll see you in the next one.